So I'm watching MTV somewhere in America, and that song comes on, and I hear that, and I'm like,
Genius, innovator, or maybe just maybe the most copied man in rock and roll. Billy Corgan, the one and only voice and mastermind behind the Smashing Pumpkins, hasn't just written some of alternative rock's most iconic 90s anthems, he's also been right in the middle of countless controversies, fiercely protecting his artistic turf. But how often has that protection turned into public callouts, accusing other musicians of straight up stealing his band's sound, their riffs, or their whole vibe? The stories are wilder and the feuds are even more bitter than you probably think. Billy Corgan has never been the quiet type. Over his decades-long career, his outspokenness has become almost as famous as his music. While the Smashing Pumpkins carved out their own unique sound, a killer mix of shoegaze, metal, psychedelia, and goth rock, Corgan often felt like the sound was being, let's say, borrowed by other groups. Sometimes subtly, other times, in his eyes, with a complete lack of shame. We're not just talking about a few snippy comments in interviews. This is a history of public takedowns, long-held grudges, and in one pretty famous case, a full-blown legal war that really left its mark on the 90s rock scene. So which artist ended up in Corgan's line of fire, accused of riding the Pumpkins' coattails? And what does this all say about the man, his music, and those often fuzzy lines of artistic inspiration? Before we get started, be sure to hit the bell notification icon and put all notifications on. I hear from a lot of my subscribers that they don't even get notifications when I post my videos. I would greatly appreciate if you guys did that. The Smashing Pumpkins worked with producer Butch Vig while recording their 1991 debut album, Gish. Corgan was heavily involved in the recording process, tracking a good deal of the bass and guitar parts, much to the chagrin of his bandmates. It was after his work on Gish, Vig famously went on to work with Nirvana on their second album, 1991's Nevermind. Corgan recalled to Rick Beato sitting with Vig on the bank of Lake Wisconsin on July 4th, 1991, a couple months before Nevermind came out. The producer played Corgan the music he'd been working on with Nirvana, with Corgan adding, "He got a boombox. He presses it and it smells like Teen Spirit. And you know, the sun's going down on beautiful Wisconsin summer day." I had two reactions. First of all, I was like, oh, he ripped off Boston's More Than a Feeling. Interesting. Then the song kicked in. I looked at Butch and said, "You ripped off my guitar sound, motherfucker." While Corgan's remark to the producer was lighthearted, he claimed Vig admitted that he did rip off Corgan's guitar sound, adding, "So now Nirvana's on the radio every 18 seconds, and of course every time I hear this guitar I'm like, oh, there's my guitar sound." Now Corgan did admit that Nirvana's Nevermind is a once-in-a-generation type of album. Billy Corgan has publicly claimed that Stone Temple Pilots, specifically their late singer Scott Weiland, ripped off one of his band's songs for the iconic STP hit Plush. During an episode of his podcast, The Magnificent Others, Corgan discussed the accusation with the DeLeo brothers. Here's what he had to say to them.
That was great guitar playing, man.
Plush.
That was really good.
Thank you. Plush was that song.
now, do you know, though, that Scott ripped off a Pumpkin song in that song?
Did he really? I didn't
In
know
which
that.
song now? In Plush?
I don't know the names of the
Are you
titles.
going to hit me for bread when we get out of here?
No.
I owe you money, don't I?
There's and you'll know because you know the record, in the Pumpkin song Suffer, and I feel, and I feel, and I tell.
Oh,
So I'm watching MTV somewhere in America, and that song comes on, and I hear that, and I'm like,
yeah.
I have to go back and revisit that.
The early to mid-90s were a pretty amazing time for alternative rock, but they were also a bit of a war zone for originality, at least if you ask Billy Corgan. One of the biggest and ugliest fights blew up between the Smashing Pumpkins and Georgia rockers Collective Soul. As Collective Soul started getting huge with their 1994 hit Shine from their first album, Hints, Allegations, and Things Left Unsaid, Corgan started making noise, and he wasn't quiet about it. He didn't just hint at similarities, but Corgan publicly and loudly accused Collective Soul of plagiarism. He even called their frontman Ed Roland a shameless ripoff artist. Ouch. Corgan's main beef was that Shine, with its distinct guitar riff and general feel, was a blatant copy of his own band's work. He specifically pointed to the Smashing Pumpkins tracks like Drown, which came out on the 1992 singles movie soundtrack, and Rhinoceros from their first album Gish, as the original songs that Shine supposedly ripped off. Corgan was reportedly furious about what he saw as a carbon copy of the Pumpkins' carefully crafted sound. This wasn't just some casual diss in an interview. Corgan was so convinced they'd been ripped off that he took it further than just talking smack. He decided to sue Collective Soul, trying to legally brand Shine as stolen goods. This move showed just how serious Corgan was and set the stage for a pretty memorable and, for Corgan, ultimately frustrating showdown. But the legal fight took a sharp and unexpected turn because of one key piece of evidence from Ed Roland. Roland was able to produce a demo showing that the song was actually demoed in 1989. The case was abruptly dismissed since the demo predated songs like Drown and Rhinoceros by 2 to 3 years, and it predated the Smashing Pumpkins' first album. With the lawsuit tossed out, you'd think things might have cooled down, but they didn't. The bitterness seemed to stick around, especially for Corgan. Collective Soul on their end didn't really stay that quiet either. While Roland did keep a lower profile than Corgan, their 1995 self-titled second album had a track that many people thought was a direct musical shot at the whole mess, titled Smashing Young Man. While Corgan isn't named in the lyrics, the title, it's pretty obvious, right? Lines like synthetic-like and talk about living in a self-lit spotlight were widely seen as digs at Corgan's personality and his very public persona. Ed Roland was a bit cagey though when he was asked about the song, but in 2020, during an interview with Cleveland.com, he pretty much admitted it, stating, "Everyone thought that because he," referring to Corgan, "was busy smack talking about us all the time, which didn't bother me at all, it's just a fun song. Yeah, it was written about him. Sure, whatever he wants to think. I don't care, but I love Smashing Pumpkins. It was Collective Soul's way of getting the last word, sticking the whole conflict into a song." Corgan, though, just couldn't seem to let it go. Years, even decades after the lawsuit, his dislike for Collective Soul was still pretty obvious. In 2010, during a Smashing Pumpkins show, the band briefly started playing a cover of Shine. This public outburst, so long after the original fight, really showed how deep his resentment ran.
I hate that song.
And the bad blood was still there as recently as 2019. It was during a social media Q&A, a fan asked Corgan if he'd ever made peace with Collective Soul. His answer was, well, short and sweet: Collective Soul, now and always. This ongoing hostility suggests that for Corgan, the Shine incident wasn't just some misunderstanding or a lost court case. It was an artistic insult he was apparently going to carry with him forever. A perfect example of his willingness to keep a feud going long after everyone else had moved on. While the Collective Soul feud is a prime example of Corgan going to a legal war over supposed plagiarism, not all his comments about musical similarities have been quite so aggressive. A more recent case involves one of the biggest bands on the planet, Metallica. Corgan has mentioned that there exists a likeness in his head between Metallica's 1997 hit Fuel from their album Reload and a Smashing Pumpkins track, Tales of a Scorched Earth, which was on their 1995 double album Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. In interviews, Corgan has said that to his ears, Fuel sounds awfully close to the earlier song. Since Tales of a Scorched Earth came out 2 years before Fuel, the timeline, unlike Collective Soul, would allow for influence. When talking about the similarity, Corgan pointed to the main riff and the vocal delivery in Fuel. He prompted an interviewer saying, "But if you listen to Tales of a Scorched Earth and you listen to the Metallica song Fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire, see, a little light bulb went off in your brain. Now which song came first?" The interviewer confirmed Tales of a Scorched Earth was earlier, and Corgan replied, "God bless you." This naturally made people listen up. Was this another case where Corgan felt his work had been unfairly lifted? The setup seemed familiar, but what he said next went down a very different road than it did with Collective Soul. Despite pointing out what he felt were striking similarities between Fuel and Tales of a Scorched Earth, Billy Corgan's approach to the Metallica thing was way different from how he handled Collective Soul. No lawsuits were threatened, no public rants calling James Hetfield or Metallica shameless ripoff artists. Instead, Corgan sounded more thoughtful, even understanding. Crucially, Corgan Corgan was quick to say he didn't believe Metallica intentionally copied him. And in a 2024 interview, he said, "Now, I don't think James Hetfield would rip anything off from me, but the first time I heard that song, I was like, that's awfully close. But I love me some James." He started his comments by saying how much he admired Hetfield as a person and a songwriter, calling him probably the greatest riff writer outside of maybe Black Sabbath's Tony Iommi. This was hardly the talk of someone gearing up for another bitter fight. In a moment of pretty clear self-awareness, Corgan even confessed, "I mean, I've certainly ripped Metallica off plenty." So now Metallica has been accused of ripping off plenty of other bands, and we could probably do a whole video on that. Let me know if you guys want me to cover that in a future video. Billy Corgan's accusations against Collective Soul and his thoughts on Metallica aren't just random incidents. They're part of a bigger picture of him being super outspoken and often criticizing other artists and the music industry itself. While Collective Soul's fight is probably the most famous example of him taking legal action over alleged plagiarism, Corgan has a long, well-known history of calling out what he sees as imitation, a lack of authenticity, or a sellout of artistic integrity in other musicians. Corgan has had a long-running beef with the group Pavement, and at one point he dismissed their song Range Life, which had a little jab at his group, the Smashing Pumpkins. Corgan claimed the jab was rooted in jealousy, to which he declared, "People don't fall in love with Pavement. They put on the Smashing Pumpkins or Hole or Nirvana because these bands actually mean something to them." Soundgarden has also found themselves on the crosshairs of Corgan's critiques. The drama reportedly started when Chris Cornell, back in 2007, questioned whether a Smashing Pumpkins reunion without all the original members was legit. Corgan later fired back, especially when Soundgarden themselves reunited, suggesting they were just out there to have one more round at the till. Same with Pavement and these other bands. Basically saying that the reunion was a cash grab and it wasn't done for artistic reasons. Even groups like Pearl Jam have faced Corgan's weird snarkiness, as some fans have called it, though the exact reasons often stay a bit mysterious. Billy Corgan gave an interview to Rolling Stone where he divulged having a conversation with Pearl Jam's Eddie Vedder, recalling, "I remember having a conversation with Eddie Vedder when we were on tour with Red Hot Chili Peppers. He told me how much of an influence Gish was on their first record," referring to Pearl Jam's album 10. Corgan added, "Through the years, I've talked to many people who really pointed to Gish as the game changer in their mind about how to approach guitar and how to record. Now, he's not always been kind to the band," as he revealed to Howard Stern here.
I love competition. I grew up playing sports. That's one thing that makes me crazy about alternative music. You're supposed to be just kind of nice and namby-pamby. I think I love competition. I think it's fantastic.
So let's speak competitively for a second.
Sure.
I would say out of the whole era of when you came onto the scene, that you and let's say the band Nirvana were probably the two most influential and important bands to come out of that whole scene.
No Pearl Jam?
No.
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 Okay.
Not even close.
Oh, would you say they were derivative? Is that why?
Absolutely.
Wow.
And I think, you know, I think the work speaks for itself. I think if you listen to the band's work, then you know, I know they have a tremendous fan base, and they should.
Right.
Great band, but
You're saying that maybe the music won't stand the test of time?
I don't know. That's a hard thing to say. That's a hard thing to say.
But competitively, you're willing to say, look, his music is second tier to yours.
I don't think they have the songs.
Right.
I think you stack my songs up, Cobain's songs up, and that band's songs don't have the songs. They're a great band. You know what I mean? Look, they're still an arena act.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They've gotten it done for a long time. I have to bow to that.
How have they gotten it done for such a long time if they don't have the songs?
That's a mystery to me because I don't get it.
Yeah. If Eddie Vedder called you up today and said, let's do an album together, or let's write together, let's do that, would you say no? I don't think that would be...
I'd have to understand his motivation. I mean, we were friends at one point, so, you know, it's not that there's no relationship train track there.
Are you not friends now?
No, I haven't been in a social frame with the guy for, I can't even remember, it's so long.
Was there a falling out?
It's Jay Leno.
Yeah, right. Was it a falling out? Like it happened so long ago.
No. I think a lot of people are transformed by fame.
Are you in other words, he became...
Well, I knew one person, and then there was another person. Now,
weird.
I'm another person, so I'm saying that, and maybe he felt the same way about me.
Then there are the complicated, tangled histories with people like Courtney Love, who he's worked with but is also publicly feuded with and been romantically involved with as well. Corgan's habit of airing his grievances publicly or critiquing his peers has really built his reputation as a bridge burner. Whether he's accusing someone of copying a sound, questioning their realness, or blasting industry practices, Corgan has consistently shown he's not afraid to speak his mind, often in a way that stirs up trouble, and fuels feuds. It really highlights just how fiercely he protects his own artistic vision, and maybe a frustration when he feels others aren't playing by the same rules. So what's the deal with Billy Corgan constantly calling out other artists, accusing them of copying him or worse? Is it just a massive ego or a genuine need to protect his artistic legacy, or something more complicated to do with his ideas about authenticity, influence, and how art gets made? One way to look at it is that Corgan sees his musical creations almost like his children. He painstakingly built the Smashing Pumpkins' unique sound, which was often hard to pin down, so any hint of someone else copying it could feel like a personal insult or feels like it cheapens his band's hard-earned originality. He was so deeply involved in writing, arranging, and producing the Pumpkin stuff that naturally he'd feel a strong sense of ownership. So what do you guys think? Was Billy Corgan right in his accusations, or did he go too far? Which of these stories surprised you the most? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you guys want more deep dives into music history and rock controversies, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, as well as the bell notifications for more. We'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.